It's 11 p.m. here in the French capital. I'm Julia Kim with all the latest news live from Paris. Your headlines this hour. Italy announces tough new restrictions for most of the country after a fresh surge in coronavirus cases. Rome and Milan, the latest cities to be declared red zones. The benefits outweigh the risks. That's the message from leading health bodies on concerns over the AstraZeneca vaccine. It comes as a growing number of countries suspend their rollout of the jab. And standing up to China, the United States, Australia, Japan and India hold their first joint summit to counter Beijing's influence in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, most of Italy is headed for a partial lockdown from Monday amid a fresh wave in infections fueled by new variants. The cities of Rome and Milan and surrounding regions have been designated red zones, red being the maximum level in the country's tiered system of COVID restrictions. Well, as Monty Francis reports, schools, restaurants, shops and museums are all expected to close.
1 year ago, Italy was at the center of the coronavirus outbreak. Now, a weary public is set to go back under a partial lockdown. Most schools, restaurants, shops, and museums are being forced to shut down as of Monday, with Rome, Milan, and more than half of the nation's population living in so-called red zones. Prime Minister Mario Draghi said the country was facing a new wave of COVID-19 cases, with infections up 10% this week from last week.
On the basis of scientific evidence, the government has today adopted restrictive measures that we have judged to be appropriate and proportionate. These measures are necessary to avoid a deterioration that would make even more stringent measures inevitable.
The new measures mean residents are urged to stay home except for work, health, or emergency reasons. Meanwhile, Draghi also reassured Italians that the national vaccination campaign would forge ahead, dispelling health concerns related to the AstraZeneca shot, as a growing number of countries have halted its use over worries about blood clots. The town of Frosinone, 40 kilometers south of Rome, has been under a full lockdown since the start of the week. Residents are at the end of their rope.
We are tired and demoralized. We can't work. We don't have anything.
I'll stay and wait. I'll do what they say, but I'm not happy about it.
On top of the reinforced measures, the government has also announced a nationwide lockdown for Easter weekend. From April 3rd to April 5th, non-essential shops will be shuttered across the country, and the majority of Italians will have to stay at home.
Now, the World Health Organization insists there's no reason to stop using the AstraZeneca vaccine after concerns it was potentially linked to blood clots. Now, that opinion echoed by the European Medicines Agency, which says its benefits outweigh the risks. Well, Thailand has become the latest to suspend the vaccine's rollout, joining a growing list of countries that include Denmark, Iceland, Norway and Bulgaria. Claire Rush has this report.
An empty chair where Thailand's prime minister was supposed to be vaccinated. The planned live broadcast event now canceled after Bangkok decided to delay its rollout of the AstraZeneca jab.
We received information from the news agencies that in Europe, few countries have suspended the injection.
Thailand now joining several European countries in pausing AstraZeneca injections, a domino effect triggered by isolated reports of recipients developing blood clots. The European Medicines Agency, however, has stressed there is no evidence the jab caused these conditions. It maintains that the vaccine's benefits outweigh the risks. The EMA did say separately, however, that product information for the AstraZeneca vaccine should be updated to include severe allergic reactions or anaphylaxis as a side effect. This based on a review of 41 reports of such reactions, identified among 5 million people who received it in the UK. Such allergic reactions are a rare but recognized side effect to numerous vaccines. and are already included in the EMA's product information for the Pfizer and Moderna jabs. Despite some European countries hitting the pause button over blood clot concerns, others, such as France, are continuing to administer the shots.
Out of 5 million Europeans, only 30 people have developed blood clots.
The rollout suspensions are yet another blow to AstraZeneca's vaccine, which suffered from initial doubts in certain EU countries over its efficacy in people over 65. Although those age restrictions have since been lifted, the hesitancy remains, with many available doses going unused.
The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in France has topped 4 million this Friday, the sixth highest figure in the world. 25,229 new infections were reported, with 223 deaths in the past 24 hours. That brings the total number of people who've lost their lives to the virus just over 90,000. Now, the French Prime Minister has described the COVID-19 situation in the Paris region as extremely tense. Jean Castex said authorities are ready to impose new measures, but once again, the capital has escaped a localized lockdown. Brazil's health ministry has signed a contract to buy 10 million doses of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine. This comes as the WHO said it was deeply concerned by the surge in COVID cases there. Health officials have warned that hospitals in major cities are reaching capacity. Brazil's daily death toll surpassed 2,000 for a second day on Thursday. Selena Sykes has the story.
Dangerously close to breaking point. The warning from Brazilian health officials as the country recorded more than 2,000 deaths for the second time on Thursday. A grim milestone that sparked concern and anger on the streets of Rio de Janeiro.
Ele, ao invés de ajudar a combater, ele incentiva o povo a não usar máscara, não compra vacina.
Eu acredito que a tendência fica pior e a preocupação aumentar, porque a gente não vê assim uma solução imediata.
As hospitals reach capacity in main cities, local authorities are scrambling to stem the surge in cases, driven by a more contagious variant that emerged in the Amazon region. The capital, Brasilia, where field hospitals are being set up to deal with the overflow of patients, has introduced a nighttime curfew. Rio de Janeiro has restricted opening hours for bars and restaurants. In Sao Paulo, only essential businesses are allowed to stay open. The country's most populous city has also introduced a curfew, closed its beaches and parks, and banned religious services and sports events.
Os nossos hospitais estão começando a comprometer. Vários deles já estão comprometidos, chegando a 100% da sua ocupação.
Local authorities say they're struggling to encourage public compliance as their efforts are being undermined by Jair Bolsonaro. The president is refusing to enforce restrictions and has consistently downplayed the threat of the virus. Meanwhile, Brazil's vaccine campaign has got off to a slow start. Less than 5% of the population has received a first shot.
Well, let's turn now to the US, where the city of Minneapolis will pay a record $27 million to settle a lawsuit from the family of George Floyd over his death in police custody. The case sparked massive nationwide protests over racial injustice and police brutality in the country. Meanwhile, jury selection is in progress for the trial of Derek Chauvin, the white policeman who knelt on Floyd's neck during his arrest. Let's hear from the family's attorney.
And so nothing will ever wipe out the Flores family ache and loss, but this settlement and the respect it shows the family will allow healing to begin. It will help to heal the city of Minneapolis and the minds and hearts of black and white people who still suffer anxiety and nightmares and post-traumatic stress from watching the 8 minutes and 46 seconds of George Floyd tortured and killed at the hands of those who were supposed to protect and serve them.
Well, France 24's Ketivan Gorgistani has the latest from Washington.
As the attorney for the family insisted on, it is a record for a pretrial settlement in a police shooting, $27 million. Just to give you an idea for context about some other police shooting settlements, remember the name of Breonna Taylor, that EMT who was shot by police in her own apartment back in 2020. Her family got $12 million from the city of Louisville, Kentucky. Even in Minneapolis, the previous record was about $20 million. That was paid by the city of Minneapolis to the family of an Australian woman who was shot and killed by a police officer. And actually, that case, that shooting that happened in 2017, does have a lot to do with the Derek Chauvin trial, which is currently ongoing, because in that case, the police officer who shot that woman was actually put on trial, and he had that third-degree murder charge that we've been talking about that was just reinstated for Derek Chauvin, and that is because of that previous case from 2017. So those two cases kind of going together, but Ben Crump really insisting on that powerful message that a big payout, big settlement from the city is a message that Black Lives Matter, and the optics of it are very important too, because you're currently actually seeing a press conference from those attorneys for the George Floyd family coming on stage together with members of the city council to speak together. So this settlement is really one of peace between the community and the city of Minneapolis. The question is what it will have as a consequence on the actual trial of the former police officer Derek Chauvin. Some are saying now that the defense might try to use this pretrial settlement to say that jurors can't be impartial. They will get to see that pretrial settlement, and that could change their minds or could taint the way they see the case.
US President Joe Biden hosted his first multilateral summit this Friday, bringing together the so-called Quad nations. The United States, Australia, Japan and India are working together to confront the pandemic, but there's a greater interest at play for all four nations, standing up to China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific. Monty Francis explains.
Created in the wake of the devastating earthquake and tsunami in the Indian Ocean in 2004, the Quad group of nations worked on helping the region recover and has since evolved into an informal alliance between the United States, Australia, India, and Japan. The nation's leaders, meeting officially for the first time, share interests in trade, but it's also a partnership to assert democratic values in the Indo-Pacific and to stand up to China's influence in the region. Hosting his first multilateral summit as president, Joe Biden didn't mention China by name, but the implication was clear.
A free and open Indo-Pacific is essential to each of our futures, our countries. The United States is committed to working with you, our partners, and all our allies in the region to achieve stability.
Just last month, the Biden administration said the U.S. relationship with China is the world's biggest geopolitical test of the century, a view that differs little from his predecessor, Donald Trump. It's also a shared value among the Quad. Over the past year, China has engaged in deadly clashes with India in the Himalayas, stepped up activity near islands administered by Japan, and imposed bans on Australian products such as barley and timber. China continues to establish its dominance with military bases in the Indo-Pacific and its Belt and Road Initiative to dominate global trade markets. Australian PM Scott Morrison said China should not be concerned about the Quad talks, but China's state-run Global Times newspaper criticized the summit as a U.S. plot against Beijing.
Now for a quick reminder of our headlines this hour. Italy announces tough new restrictions for most of the country after a fresh surge in coronavirus cases. Rome and Milan, the latest cities to be declared red zones. The benefits outweigh the risks. That's the message from leading health bodies on concerns over the AstraZeneca vaccine. It comes as a growing number of countries suspend their rollouts of the jab. And France's annual celebration of cinema, the César, takes place under strict COVID restrictions. We'll have more on the winners and the losers later on in the programme.